Hey guys, it's Peyton, and today I'm going to be talking about the best and the worst books I've read so far in 2024. What I'm really doing today is the mid-year book freakout tag. I don't know if I have a playlist of them all or not, but I should definitely make one because I've definitely done this several years in a row. I have read 30 books so far this year. 2 of them were short stories, so really 28 novels. There's a lot to talk about. It's like a mid-year check-in. Do I like these books? Do I hate them? Like, what's going on with me? So the first question is all about, what's your favorite book so far of 2024? And I have to say, oh, this is not the one, I'm so sorry. I have to say it is Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. And it's super interesting because this was my first book of the year, which is so lucky that I was able to read such a 5-star read right out the gate of 2024. It really set a good tone. And honestly, I've had quite a few 5 stars this year, which I don't feel like I've been doing that much lately before this year. I didn't know much about it. I just knew a lot of people were reading it at the time, and I finally gave it a chance. And I absolutely loved it. It's about 2 people who kind of fell in love with 2 magical typewriters, and it's a duology, and I've been really loving duologies recently. For some reason, 2 books seems to wrap up things beautifully. Trilogies have been beloved in YA, like this is a YA fantasy, to the point where often one of the 3 books usually doesn't hit the same. So it is very nice when it seems like the 2 books in the duology are both bangers, and I am kind of spoiling some of what's going on in the rest of this video because this one was so freaking genius and beautiful. I loved like every freaking word that was in this. I wasn't expecting it because I've been loving YA less and less. I still love YA, but I feel like it gets harder and harder to get me to care about the characters. They have to really stick out to me and grab me by the emotions. This one is an enemies to lovers where Iris and Roman both work at the same newspaper, and they're kind of rivals, divine rivals, to be the best journalist. They want to be the one that has all the stories. Working at this newspaper and being like head to head against each other the way that they are, like they butt heads a lot. I loved it. The chemistry was there. They both obviously thought each other were cute and attractive, but where it really sets off is where Iris and him have these typewriters that seem to be magically connected, and they end up accidentally being pen pals together where he knows who he's writing to, but she does not know who he is. So they kind of fall in love through these letters. And there's also crazy war and terrible shit going down in this book, in this fantasy world. Like the world is falling apart and there's so much to it and it's really interesting. But we also have this really soft, beautiful love story through these letters. And there's another book that I read this year that had to do with letters and just falling in love through them. And I thought they were just absolutely gorgeous, beautiful characters, flawed characters, but so interesting. So when we get to the next question, best sequel that I read so far, I mean, it's crazy, but it's my second book of the year, Ruthless Vows by Rebecca Ross. She wrote such a stellar duology, and I hadn't read that many duologies. I feel like a lot of things have been trilogies, so I'm seeing more and more things be duologies, and I feel like it just gives the author the ability to not draw things out, like not just try to get a 3rd book. Things get drawn out too far sometimes, and I feel like nothing in these books were overdone. I feel like it was perfect. This book had me sobbing. It was so beautifully done. I love these 2 characters and the side characters. It made me care about everybody that was present, and the crazy chaotic war that comes to fruition in this book. It is just so good, and I would love to meet this author and get my book signed. Highly recommend. Do not let the hype scare you. I think these were gorgeously written, beautiful characters. Everything was beautiful. Next is a new release that I haven't read yet, but I want to. I picked one that I literally just bought. One of Our Kind, Nicola Yoon. This one, I had no idea Nicola Yoon was coming out with a new book. Nobody told me. Maybe I was living under a rock. I don't know if everybody knew about this, but she wrote Everything, and A Sun Is Also a Star. 2 of my favorite books, 5 out of 5 stars. I've read Everything twice, obsessed. I feel like they hold up. They're years ago in the YA romances, but this is a shift for her. This is a mystery thriller adult book. She was on a late night show with one of those comedian dudes. She was describing it as more of a thriller aspect. It's pitched as Get Out meets The Stepford Wives. I've never seen The Stepford Wives, but I do love Get Out. So I'm super here for this. This is about a wife and a husband, Jasmine and King Williams, and they move to this town, Liberty, California, which is known as kind of a black utopia. Everything seems to be going really well here. She hasn't given us much away about what's going down in this book other than that pitch and that this town is not what it seems. There seems to be something strange going on. The main character and only a couple people are grouping together to figure out what's going on. Seems like an interesting situation where a lot of emotional, powerful things are going to happen to us in this book, and I'm really excited to see what she has. Jumping into the adult book sphere, because I've been reading more and more adult books. I've been honestly reading a lot more adult books than I do YA recently, so it's exciting that I kind of feel like I'm growing up with her. I've met her before and she is so nice. I love her. She is just so good. I never read the instructions for dancing. I don't know why. I need to get to that. But I'm excited to see that she's doing something new and jumping into a different genre. Next question is, what is my most anticipated book for the rest of the year that hasn't come out yet? For me, it's the sequel to I Feed Her to the Beast and the Beast is Me. It is I Am the Dark That Answers When You Call. Here is the cover. I think this comes out in November. I feel like I read that and I've been going with it ever since, so I hope it actually does come out in November. Beautiful, stunning books, and they just came out with another cover of this for the paperback if you want to see it. Beautiful. I gave this book a 5 stars. I just read it recently. I read it during a reading vlog that I did for my little beach trip, and I read it on the beach. It was very peaceful and nice. Though this is a YA horror, so it was an interesting book to read on the beach, but I had a good time. I loved it so much that I read it originally from Kindle Unlimited for free, and I bought myself a copy because I loved it that much, and I think you should read it. Go read it. But I'm super excited because this is another duology, and I've been feeling the duology, so I have a good feeling that both of these books are going to be really great, and then I'm going to just have 2 books that are just perfectly done that I want to keep forever and read over and over and over again. This one has to do with our main character, Lawrence. She is in the Paris, France ballet, and I didn't know much about the ballet before going into this book, but there's all these hierarchies and like crazy ass people who will do anything to get to the top. And Lawrence is one of the only black students there. I think she is the only one, and she is trying to rise her ranks. She has finished like the academy that they have there, and now it's time to actually like be in the Paris ballet. But she has a lot of people around her who kind of just get things handed to them because they look aesthetically what like the ballet wants. She is a black girl. She is not what they typically want. So even though she's probably the most talented girl out of all of them, they're dismissing her. And this, after so many years, is her breaking point. Like, I can imagine that's like literally the most frustrating thing, being as talented as she is, putting in the most effort out of anyone, and she still is not being recognized. One day she comes across a river of blood and makes a deal with the gods. And, you know, I'm not going to tell you what the deal was specifically, but it's a way to give her power against these people who have done her wrong for all these years. And this book is kind of a villain origin story, but you're really on her side the whole time. Like, you can see why she would reach these lengths to do what she's doing. And I love this character. The writing was beautiful. The title was within the book. I love when that happens, and super ready for the sequel. I don't want to give too much away about like all the horror elements of this book, but it's super interesting and I want to learn more about it and see where these characters go, because I enjoyed the side characters as well. They're really cute, fun, and, you know, creepy at times, but I liked it. I'm here for this and I can't wait for the sequel. So now let's talk about some books I did not like that much. Books that were disappointments. I picked 3 because, I mean, most of this tag is for things that you like. So I'm gonna give us a couple here. I haven't like truly hated anything that I've read, maybe one of them that I'll talk about. These were ones that just didn't hit as hard as I wanted. Like, I definitely imagined something more. The first one I have is Home is Where the Bodies Are, Geneva Rose. I did read this for a vlog. I'll link it below. And I love this cover, and that's why this one is so disappointing because what a great cover, what a great concept of 3 siblings. They are all adults now, and they all come home because their mother is on her deathbed. She is about to die, and you know, they're gonna wish her well, wish her off to the other place. And once they start digging through their mother's things, they find a VHS tape that has both of their parents on tape, covered in blood, dragging a body, and it just turns off. And they're like, oh, that's really weird and mysterious. By the way, their father's missing. They don't even know where he is. They think their parents had something to do with this murder. What a great premise. It really got me. I've never read this author before, but I was here for it. It fell victim to being one of the most obvious books ever. When a reveal is too obvious, it can really ruin a book. Sometimes a book or movie can get away with things that are obvious, because if they put enough sprinkles, enough clues in place that made the reveal make sense, like, I can respect it. But when it's just this badly done, this badly orchestrated, I was over here hoping that I was like, oh, this is so obvious, like, there has to be something else. There has to be something else. And every time a book hits you when it's like not something else and you figured it out since like maybe chapter 3, it's disappointing because you just want it to be not smarter than the book. And this is just one of them things where I don't even think I'm particularly smart. I just feel like I've read enough thrillers now that this was quite simple. And it was too simple for what this could have been. Like, I think this is her 3rd thriller out and she's pretty popular. I just feel like she could have done something more with this. It was just too easy, too simple, and just boring. And the epilogue was weird. I don't like how that one was done because with what does happen in this book, it felt like the way the epilogue was handled was a little bit like disrespectful. Like I wouldn't go that route. I don't agree with it. The next one was probably my least favorite book of the year so far, and I feel like we can understand this one. This one is called Getting It On with the Gargoyles. I feel like we can understand why I didn't like this. This was my first monster romance book. It was like pitched to me as Halloween Town, which I still think that is a strong, like, adult Halloween Town. I love the world that we got going on here. It's a small town with all different types of monsters, and this group of 3 sisters, they're triplets, they move in, and they all have little romances with different monsters. The second one is with a troll, and then there's one with a witch, I think. No, there's one with a vampire. I don't know. I wish I liked the actual romance better because I can get down with this weird world and even some of the weird monster romancy things of like tails and claws and things. I could get down with it, but this was just the most insta-lovey thing that I just could not enjoy the actual romance that we had here. And since I didn't enjoy the romance, I definitely did not enjoy the explicit, weird romantic material that we had in here because I didn't already like the characters themselves. Throwing them together in like the second conversation they had, it felt like it didn't work. So I am intrigued by this world, and if it does get better, maybe I will pick up the other ones. I gave this like a 2 stars. It could have probably been a 1 star to be honest, but that 2 star is for the world, for the energies and the vibes. This was a fun time, but the romance could have been done so much better and it just wasn't. The next one is a magic steeped in poison. I did enjoy this concept as well. This one has a whole magic system with tea. You brew different teas and it does different magical things to you. And the main character is entering into a competition with tea brewing, and I believe she needs to help her sister because her sister is sick, and then their father, everything's going wrong in their family currently, so she really needs to win this competition. This was a YA fantasy, and like kind of what I was saying earlier is like it's harder and harder to impress me with the YA fantasies these days, and if the characters aren't really sticking out to me, I don't care. And it's very unfortunate because I do think this cover is gorgeous, like oh my god. And then the magic system is so interesting, but the actual characters were so one-dimensional and I just didn't care at the end of the day. I do think I cared about the main character from what I remember a little bit, but all the side characters, romantic relationship character, like I just didn't care. It's not that I didn't like it or anything. I think I gave it 3 stars. Like it was just perfectly average for me, and I really would have loved it if it wasn't perfectly average. Like I think this was so interesting once again. Like it's a good concept, but I didn't feel like the execution was fully there, at least for me. Like I'm not the age range for this anymore, so I do feel like this is still a really good choice for a teenager to pick up. The biggest surprise book for me. Shook me to my core. Honestly, wasn't even planning on reading this book, and I'm so thankful I decided to pick it up because the book is just gorgeous and I ended up doing it anyways. This one was a sequel. I enjoyed the first one, but kind of like what I said with Magic Steeped in Poison, the first time I read it, I just didn't feel anything for it, and it was kind of boring, and I just didn't get it at the time. I have since reread it and I feel differently, but I wouldn't have reread it and felt differently if I did not read this book. Emily Wilde's Map of the Other Lands by Heather Fawcett. I loved this book. I still think it's better than the first one. This one is a 5 out of 5 stars read for me, and as a person who probably gave the first one a 3 stars like I did with Magic Steeped in Poison, it just like didn't wow me in any way. That's a 3-star rating for me. Like, it's good. I can see a lot of people loving it, but I for some reason just felt like it was average. I loved this. I picked it up probably because these editions of this book, I mean, they're really gorgeous. I know it's really hard to find the first one, and luckily for me, I did buy the first one right when it released, and then I read it probably a couple months later after the release date. I have the collection growing of these books. There's going to be a third one as well. I don't know if there's more after that. I want the editions that are hard to find. Like the first one, I'm sure people are selling for a lot because people love to do that. I was working at Barnes & Noble at the time, and it just came out, and I got it for half off. It was my discount. So I gave it a try because some of my coworkers really loved Emily Wilde, the first one. I was like, okay, maybe I'm not understanding something. And you know what? I wasn't understanding something. I think the first time I went into the first book, I didn't understand what vibe we were going for. When I went and reread it after I read this one because I was so obsessed with it, I had a new take on what we were doing with these books. These are very slow burn with the romance as well as what we're getting at. I will say, I'll warn you with the first one, like, no, it is a slow burn. And at first, the characters, the slow burn with them, I wasn't fully understanding that either. I saw them develop so much in this book that when I went back and read the first one, I saw all the sprinkles that we were laying out. Like, this is truly a slow burn that goes past the second book. Like, it goes to the second book and past that, I'm sure. To give you an explanation, it's about this girl, Emily Wilde. What is the century we're in? I don't know. It's back in the day. And she is working at a university. She is a scholar, and she is really, really well researched on fairies. She is currently making the first encyclopedia of fairies. That's what the first book is called. It's kind of seen as an actual encyclopedia of fairies. We have footnotes in it and everything, which I wasn't used to the footnotes either. Phone, shut up. The pages are journal entries from Emily Wilde on all of her findings, and sometimes we would drone on for a long time about what she found out about these fairies. She was on her little adventure. But we also have Wendell Bambleby, who is another scholar for fairies, and he is suspiciously interesting. I don't remember what was told about the first one, but she is suspicious that he is not just human. He shows up and decides he wants to help her with her scholarly travels because she just traveled to this weird cabin in the woods, and he wants to be a part of it, and they can write this big encyclopedia stuff together, and they can do a big presentation at this big scholarly festival. And it's a slow burn of them just studying fairies and then having snarky conversations back and forth because they both find each other attractive, and Bamblebee's kind of in love with her, but she does not like him because she senses there's something about him that he's keeping secret. Like, there's just something not right about this guy. But in this book, we just explore their relationship even further. We explore the world of fairy, and it is so cool. I just love this world. I love these characters, and I cannot wait for the third one. I think it's coming out early next year. Fantastic. Just go in with the right mindset that this is going to be a slow process, but oh god, rereading the first one, it just gave me a whole new experience. Now, who is my favorite new to me author? I have to say Abby Jimenez. I binged 2 of her books back to back. Yours Truly, it's the one I started with. I didn't start with the Part of Your World book, which is the first one in this companion trilogy. And then I read, what is it called? Just for the Summer. I really loved this one specifically. 5 stars, one of my favorite books of the year. I thought Just for the Summer is pretty good. I gave it a 4 stars, I think. This is the one that I said was also falling in love through letters. This guy with social anxiety. They're both doctors, and he's leaving her letters because he's too stressed to talk to her. And they just keep writing letters, and they keep falling in love, and there's a fake dating element, and I just love these characters so much. This character, Jacob, he is such a good person. And I just related to him a lot with the social anxiety representation. It was so well done, and I'm trying to speed through this video now because it's getting kind of long. I just wanted you to know that I thought this was a really beautiful romance, and it is also harder and harder to get me to love a romance because I read more and more. But this one actually really impressed me, and I highly recommend this one specifically from her. My newest fictional crush, it could have been Jacob, but you know, I'm trying to throw in as many books in there as I can. A Dowry of Blood. No, it's not Dracula. I'm not in love with Dracula. I'm specifically gonna say Magdalena. I think that's how you say her name. I literally just read this book. 5 freaking stars. This book is fabulous. I don't know why I've been reading so many 5 stars back to back. I'm just choosing the best books at the best time right now for myself. I mean, highlighting, tabbing, obsessed with this book. I read it so fast. This has to do with Dracula, but specifically his first wife, Constanta. I cannot say her freaking name. Constanta. I'm gonna say Constanta, even though I know that's wrong. I was just saying it in my head the whole time. I've never actually said it out loud. So Constanta is the first wife, and this book is her writing letters to Dracula, and the whole point is she is going to lead him to his death. She is his first wife. He technically saved her from death, made her a vampire, and they live centuries together. And this is a collection of her letters to him, talking pretty much through why she ended up wanting him dead. What led to this? Because they started from love and then ended up centuries later, just absolute hatred. You know, you can only get real hatred from real love. But over the time, he gets more and more lovers in the mix. So this was actually like a polyamorous situation. I didn't know about that. I knew it was sapphic in some way. Did not know about the polyamory, and I was super here for it. But Magdalena, she was super interesting. She was the second wife of Dracula, and it could have gone a really bad route where we're like really jealous of her, but you know, the polyamory at the end of the day, they ended up all kind of loving each other, so it kind of worked out. But Magdalena, she was just remarkable. I mean, she was the leader of a country. If I read it correctly, she was the leader of a whole thing, and very political, and just was super smart, knew the right moves and power moves to create, and she was freaking people's mentors, political figures, the Pope, all types of things. She was so smart, and I just thought she was so awesome, beautiful, stunning, great chemistry with all of these characters. Yeah, I just don't see anything wrong with her, so I'm kind of in love with her, so yeah. Oh, and I just realized for the next question, I picked this book as well. My newest favorite character, Constanta, however you say her name. She is such a powerful freaking person who went through so much over the centuries. She was just in such a controlling relationship with Dracula, and we just follow her mindset of dealing with this and how he just was a freaking poison to her whole life and existence. Seeing her find the strength to potentially overpower him was just really cool to see, and I love her character. Book that made me cry, dear Lord, Monstrillo. Gerardo Samano Cordova. Oh my gosh, this book was about a monster. Why was I crying about the monster? These two parents had a son. We open up with his death. Super depressing and sad. It's a young child. The main character, Magos, she does not want to accept this death, and she takes a piece of his body and decides to grow it. And it's a little bit of a magical realism situation where the piece of the body starts to grow and it starts morphing into a little monster. Is this monster their son, or is it something else? So this book explores the power of love, the terror of grief, what will happen to you, the lengths you will go to protect what you love and not experience grief. It is crazy. It has 4 perspectives, one of which is the monster. The monster part is what made me cry because it's so sad, and while he is a monster and doing awful things, it's like so depressing because did he want to exist anyways? Like, this was so hard, and it was a horror novel. It's an adult horror, super gory and gross, but I was fine, so I recommend just read it, please. Super fantastic. One of the best books I've ever read. I also tabbed and annotated this. I just read this one as well. Like, I've literally been reading back-to-back fantastic books for some reason. I had this one in my June wrap-up if you want to go watch that. A book that made me happy is Library of Shadows by Rachel Moore. This one is a romance with a ghost, and they're in a library. They do library things, clean up the library, and he's just a ghost. He's stuck in the library, and they have like a romance. It's a YA paranormal thing, and I just loved the vibes. It was so good. Like, are they gonna somehow be in love? Like, I loved it. My favorite book to movie or TV adaptation this year, I have not really watched anything that I've also read. I'm gonna say A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. It's not out in the US yet. It is in the UK. It seems like it's gotten good reviews, and my trailer reaction is linked down below if you want to know how I feel about it, but I'm pretty convinced it's going to be fantastic, amazing, the new thing. It's coming to Netflix in August, and I think it's gonna be a banger. Please give me a season 2 and a season 3. Give me all 3 books adapted. I want this to be a thing. Like, please. I don't want to explain this to you. You should already know what it's about. A beautiful book that I bought this year, I'm gonna say The Haunting of Hill House, Shirley Jackson. I have not read this one before, but I really want to. It's very cool. I love the orange and the black sprayed edges. It was just at Barnes & Noble, and I saw it and I had to have it. I've been wanting to read this for ages. We all know The Lottery by Shirley Jackson. Like, we were forced to read that as kids. Great short story. I want to read this one because I loved the show, and I would love to see the source material and how it's adapted, and if I love the original as well. I'm sure I will. I wanted a cool edition of it, and I certainly got one. Can't wait to finally read it because I'm writing a horror novel with ghosts myself, and I feel like I need to read some of the greats, and this is a great example. Books that I want to read by the end of the year. You know, this video is super long, so this is going to be a flash. I just picked books that I've pretty much bought recently or just were staring at me. This Woven Kingdom, Tahira Mafi. Love Tahira Mafi. Shatter Me series is everything. I need to read this. Like, this is her YA fantasy series that she's got going on now, and I think they're on book 3. So I'm super upset that I haven't started it yet, but I have it now, so hopefully I will read it. Delicious Monsters and Tender Beast, Liselle Sambury. I literally like started this one. I need to keep going. These are gorgeous. This is another ghost book. It's a YA paranormal horror. Super excited to read that. I want to read the ghost books for inspiration for my book, and this one is a YA thriller. I think her brother is a killer, so it's crazy. Seeing this, I'm like, is it paranormal as well? I'm not really sure. I want to read An Education in Malice. This is the same author as A Dowry in Blood, which I'm so obsessed with, but I decided before I read this one, and I'm currently reading Dracula, which is crazy about me. That one obviously was inspired by Dracula, and there's this other book called Carmilla that Dracula apparently was inspired by, and it is sapphic vampires, which I can't believe I didn't know about this earlier. I'm stupid. And I saw that a character in here, this is also vampires, sapphic vampires, and I saw that a character is named Carmilla. So I feel like I should read Carmilla before I read this to see if we have any connections here, if I'm just crazy. And then I also want to read Bunny by Mona Awad. Dark Academia, I think. Crazy women that call each other bunnies. I have no idea with this one, but people, it's like a cult that loved this book. I think the girls might be a cult. I love a thing set on a university of crazy women. I'm super here for that. So, dear Lord, I talked about a lot of things, so I hope we got this covered. I hope we're good. Did you even watch it? You know, probably not, but I enjoyed it. It's good. I didn't sweat too much. It's kind of crazy. Oh, I just found another book I want to read. Lord of the Flies. I love this edition. I got this cool edition. Never read Lord of the Flies. I feel like my Hunger Games bitch ass would freaking love this. So, you know, here I am. I'm gonna read it. I want to read the classics. I'm reading Dracula right now. I'm halfway through it. Low-key, it's kind of boring, but I'm still doing it. Let me know what you have read so far this year. You know, the notable ones. The things that you've hated the most. The things that you loved the most. What should I read of your favorites this year? Let me know. I'm interested. I'm intrigued. And I'll just see you later. Goodbye.